A plane crashed on Indian soil, flown by an Indian airline, carrying Indian passengers. But when the investigation began, the answers didn't come from Delhi, they came from France, where the engines were made, from America, where the black box was decoded, from Europe, where the aircraft was certified, and India. We waited for other countries to tell us what went wrong in our own skies. That's when it hit. Even when an Indian plane crashes, it's not really ours to fix. So here's the real question. If we can't even investigate our own crash, can we really afford not to manufacture our own planes? Last year, over 150 million Indians flew. That's more than the entire population of Russia. And it's made India the third largest domestic aviation market just behind US and China. Our airports are booming. New routes launch every week. But while India is laying runways, it's Airbus and Boeing who are making the planes. They get the orders. They make the engines. And our skies, they've become the most profitable market we don't control. India is taking off, but someone else is flying the plane. Here's what's frustrating. India isn't failing because it lacks engineers. It's failing because no one is asking the right questions. What should we build? For whom? At what cost? With what support? No Indian OEM, not HAL, not DRDO, not any private players is steering this conversation. Airlines aren't even in the room. Regulators show up late. And manufacturers, they build what's told, not what's needed. No vision, no feedback loop, no plan. So even if we had the factories, they would be flying blind. Frustrating, right? Because India doesn't lack the ability to build planes. It lacks a system that can't even define what kind of planes do we need or why. So how should India actually start building planes? Not by doing everything, but by doing the right things together. Step 1. Create a triangle where airlines, regulators and manufacturers sit in the same room from day one. Airlines define what they need, regulators ensure it's certifiable, manufacturers build the spec. The triangle is the cockpit of Indian aviation, not just for flight, but for alignment. Step 2. Build a home, a dedicated aerospace park with tooling labs, clean rooms and digital twins. Not just factories that screw together, but hubs where India control the intelligence of the aircraft, not just the shell. Step 3. Follow a playbook. A national aircraft policy, a real PLI scheme. One that rewards not just parts, but performances. Not just vendors, but integrators who make the whole system fly. Because the goal isn't to copy Boeing and Airbus. It's to build what India and the global south actually need. Because when a plane crashes, the wreckage is visible. But sometimes the biggest failure is the one you can't see. It's a system that never asked, what should India build? Why don't we fly what we design? And what does it cost to stay passengers in someone else's cockpit? Because this isn't just about aviation. It's about ownership, about control, about a country that sends rockets to moons, but still rents its wings to fly. At NoNoise, we don't just ask what happened. We understand and build for what matters. So if you believe India should do more than just assemble, if you believe we deserve to design, decide and lead, then hit subscribe. Because this is just the beginning and we break down every obstacle that's holding us back from building our own planes. In 2025, Boeing signed one of its biggest aircraft deals, hundreds of wide-body jets worth $96 billion with Qatar. And just a week later, the Trump administration dropped key tariffs on Qatari imports. Coincidence? Not even close. Because in aviation, every jet is a diplomatic lever. Planes aren't just transport, they are bargaining chips, geopolitical favors, industrial weapons. And here's the shocker: India, the third largest aviation market on earth, has never played this game. Aircraft manufacturing isn't blocked by one big wall, it's death by 1,000 cuts. Small on their own, but together they cage us. India builds parts. We manufacture the fuselage, the wiring, even the landing gear. But when it comes to designing the full aircraft, integrating systems, or passing global certificates, we disappear. Why? Because integration, the art of making brain and body sync, is locked behind tools and structures we don't control. Simulation softwares are very expensive. Compliance comes after the design, not during. Our tier 2 vendors can't meet global documentation standards. And our engineers, they build parts, not platforms. It's not India doesn't know how to build, it's that we've never been taught to own the process. The tragedy: most of these bottlenecks aren't technical, they are structural. India doesn't have a national aircraft strategy. There's no central dashboard showing who's building what or what's missing. Vendors work alone. Regulators come in late. Airlines are nowhere in sight. Our PLI schemes reward quantity, not capability. And our policies, they treat aerospace like a factory line, not a system industry. And when startups step in, they're trapped by DRDO red tape and private investors' indifference. The result: everyone builds a part, no one owns the plane. Everyone complains about delays, no one owns the timeline. That's not supply chain, that's a loop with no pilot. Here's what no one tells you: aircraft manufacturing isn't about building parts, it's about building alignments. And to fix our bottlenecks, India must stop treating aerospace like auto. Planes aren't cars, they are systems of systems. So, what do we need? A mission owner, not just a funder, but a single cockpit that aligns DRDO, HAL, OEMs, certifiers, and airlines from day zero. A domestic simulation stack, so Indian engineers can test, fail, and learn without going abroad. A regulatory sandbox where certification happens during the build, not after, and a public private roadmap with hard deadlines, clear incentives, and system level KPIs. Because when everyone sees the whole aircraft, not just their piece, that's when things will finally start to fly. For decades, India was told start with parts, learn the process, work your way up. So we did. We mastered the parts. But the climb never came. Because the ladder was never meant to reach the top. The global aerosystem doesn't want more builders, it wants more buyers. Countries that order planes, not countries that compete. And unless India builds its own planes, we will stay locked in someone else's flight path. Which brings us to the real question: what would it actually take for India to build its own planes? US has the iPhone, France has the Airbus, Germany has the Porsche, and India, we have the scale, we have software, some of the smartest minds on the planet, but no product that shouts, "This is India." Not in aviation, not in defense, not in hardware. We are the third largest aviation market in the world, but We still fly planes on someone else's specs, timelines, and priorities. And maybe that's why, no matter how brilliant we are, the world still sees us as the back office, not the builder. Everyone says India should build its own planes, but almost no one asks what does it actually take. Because a plane isn't a product, it's a conversation between 6 million parts midair at 40,000 feet. You don't just need factories, you need simulators, certifiers, test labs, and system integrators all speaking the same language. From blueprint to takeoff, you need to design not just wings, but how they talk to each other. Not just engines, but the brain that controls it. Not just the pilot seat, but the chain of trust behind every switch. And until India builds for that complexity, we will keep thinking in parts, while the rest of the world builds in systems. We were never told the full recipe, just handed a few ingredients and told wait in the kitchen corner. Our engineers, brilliant, but taught to follow specs, not question them. Our labs, world class, but drowning in red tape and cut off from the real outcome. Our policies celebrate Make in India, but stay silent on design in India. And when someone dares to build an aircraft ecosystem, they are tossed between ministries, buried in approvals, and starved for serious R&Ds. It's not that India lacks talent, it's that we've been kept on the sideline, asked to build quietly, not boldly, told to follow, never allowed to lead. And that's the real sting. We didn't miss the flight. We were never shown the runway. India doesn't need permission, it needs a playbook. First, we need a single mission owner, not five ministries, one cockpit, one vision, an anchor that aligns HAL, DRDO, private OEM startups, and certifiers from day zero. Second, we need to crack open the black box, build indigenous simulators, create open certificate labs, let our engineers design, test, fail, and fix without begging abroad. Third, we need system integrators. People don't just assemble parts, but connect them with intent, not workers, system architects. And finally, we need to ditch vanity lens and start treating aviation for what it is, a national industrial weapon. Because the day India stops asking, can we build this? And starts asking, here's how we will, that's the day we stop flying on borrowed wings. Imagine this: an aircraft designed in Bengaluru, engineered in Pune, certified in Hyderabad, and flown across Asia, Africa, and Latin America, not as fallbacks, but as the first choice. What if India build a plane for the global south? One that understands tropical heat, dense cities, short runways, not just because it studied, but because it was lived. Because maybe the real question isn't can India build a plane, but rather can we build a plane the world has been waiting for. This wasn't just about aviation, it was about reclaiming ownerships of our skies, our capabilities, our voice. Thank you for listening to No Noise, where we don't just ask what happened, we ask what should have, and we build towards what must. Because sometimes the skies you own start with questions you dare to ask.